Today we're going to start with this Tin Lizzy 18, and it has a problem, and the problem is the frozen. So what we're going to do is take off the needle plate, take off the ankle, and take out the needle. Okay, so still frozen, can't turn it. So what we're going to do to make it so that we can turn it is we're going to try to take out this hook, and there's 3 screws on that hook, and it's a little difficult to reach them because some are in the bottom and some are in the top. So I'm going to tip this up. Let's put a block under here. Let's see if I can reach it. Nope, can't reach it. If I could get the positioning finger out, let's see if I can do it with this little screwdriver though. Nope. We'll tip it up further. Hard to do this when you're doing it by yourself. It's really tight. Can't get it. Okay, well, let's see what else we can do. Maybe we can get the screws out. We'll tip this back a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. See if I can get the screws out of the hook. Still gonna have to get that out of there though. Okay. Being very difficult. Okay, I got it. You have to grunt and bite your lip and do all those things. Okay. So if you're not familiar with your machine, it's good to have a little ice cube tray and you letter everything. I know this machine pretty well, but still it's not a bad idea to do. Okay. So now our hand wheel turns, which will allow me to release the screws on the hook. There's 1. There's 2. And 3. Okay, now we have the hook off of there, and you can see it doesn't want to turn. So we will remove the screws on here and take that hook out of there. So good idea when you're working on those little screws is to get you a towel so that if you drop them, they're not going to go into Never Never Land. You probably need a smaller screwdriver for that. And I don't know why little screws need to be that tight. We'll put some penetrating oil on there, see if that will loosen them up. Check. If I wasn't crawling around on the floor looking for parts, putting a little penetrating oil on the hook sometimes will release the jam, and it will not. So I think what I will do is I will try to heat it up a little bit. This is going to get really hot. I'm going to do it in the can. That'll tend to concentrate that heat all down in there really fast. Probably going to be too hot to handle now. See if I can get a bigger handle on that. Yeah, I got one screw loose. Got two loose. Got three loose. It's amazing what that heat gun does. Four. Five. We may not have to take this side off. We'll see if we can get it out of there without taking that side off. Okay, so those frozen screws that I couldn't get out, heat and penetrating oil, stuff I'm using is this Tri-Flow. It's a penetrating oil with a Teflon-like product in it. When the penetrating oil evaporates, the Teflon is left. So it's really great stuff for sewing machines and other products. Okay, so I got all three of those screws out. We're going to capture them on a magnet there. Still a little warm. If you're having trouble turning it, sometimes I'll take a chopstick and I'll put it across the top there. There, it turned. And you can see that little piece of lint right there is what was freezing our hook assembly. So now it's going to rotate. So I can tighten those screws back up. Still a little on the warm side. I guess we could have gone ahead and checked, see if there's any other lint in there. The trick to getting this out of there is it has to be between, it has to come out that opening. So we got a little bit of lint in there. We will brush it out. So what we're looking for is lint in this groove. And it just takes the tiniest little piece of lint to jam that up. And you can see there's some lint on here. Get the old toothbrush out. Now when we put that back in there, same thing. That groove is where that lip goes. And you have to get it so it sits down in there. And the only way to get it down in there is to get this part in this side. There. Okay, so now you can see how it rotates. Make sure there's no lint in here too. The other thing to look at when you got this thing apart is you want to look for burrs on the hook. So this is what actually picks up the thread, that piece right there. And that's what will cause thread shredding and other issues. Okay, we got the first one started. If your screwdriver isn't magnetized enough, I use my super magnetizer here. It's a field winding out of a vacuum cleaner with a rechargeable battery from my screw gun. Okay, so now this thing will really stick on there. You don't want to tighten them all at once. You want to tighten them up gently, one at a time. Get them all started first and then begin tightening them so that you don't end up with a problem of alignment. And I might have that one a little too tight. We're going to loosen these others so that I can shift that so that the hole lines up better. You can see it's not quite lining up until I push on it. These little screws, you hate to get them cross-threaded because they'll strip right out on you. I'm pushing down on that, trying to align it. Looks like it's going to go in there. It's not starting. Okay, there it did. Now we got it. Got one tight, two tight, three tight, Try avoiding stabbing myself with a screwdriver. It would help to have a cameraman. Okay, so we got that one tight. That one tight. And that one tight. Okay, so you can see the 3 screws here that adjust the timing. So in order to adjust the timing, we need to put a needle in there. And you want to make sure that you have a new needle. And the trick on installing this properly is there's a groove on the front of the needle and a scarf on the back. And when this comes around, the tip of that hook has to go in that scarf. So we're going to put it in here, but you need to make sure that it's in there straight. So I'm going to put the needle in the slot, and there's no flat on the shaft, so you have to make sure that the groove is perpendicular. So I use a little magnet, and we put that on the front of the groove, and then as we turn it, we can see that we've got that in there properly. So we will tighten that needle clamp screw up with a screwdriver that isn't quite so long. Let's get a little stubby screwdriver. Okay, so it is in there square. Now, one of the important things on this, I'm going to clean that lint out right there. Critical on timing. First thing you have to do is get the needle at the right height. And the right height of the needle, let's point that out with the screwdriver here, is when the needle penetrates through that hole. I'm going to pretend we've got the needle here. Let's put it in this hand. When the needle penetrates through that hole, you want to see half of the eye of the needle. Let's see if I can show you this. Half of the eye of the needle needs to be above this portion right here. So that if it's too low, this piece right here will pinch the thread. So that's why that's critical. So we're going to put this on here, and it just make sure the screws are loose enough. Okay, so this is on here and just turns. So this is just, I hope you can see it. This just turns, okay? So we're going to put our needle all the way down, and I don't have my positioning finger in there. I don't have this piece in there, which is what centers that right there. So we're going to put this down, and half of the eye of the needle needs to be exposed. I'm going to move the camera around to this side. I hope we can see that. So if we look right down here, I'm looking that the thread doesn't get pinched right on that piece right there. I know it's hard to see, and I frequently use a magnifying glass to do that. If that is not the right height, then you have to go in there and adjust the needle height in that hole right there. But it looks to be pretty good. So I am going to raise this up 1/8 of an inch. Now sometimes that's a little hard to do. 1/8 of an inch is the thickness of 2 pennies. So if you raise it up 1/8 of an inch, you don't have a gauge. I'm going to clean my shaft off here with a rag. And I'm going to put a mark on the shaft right even there. Let's get over here so you can see it. I hope you can see that mark right there. So I put my 2 pennies on here, and I'm going to raise that up till it's that height. So that's my 1/8 of an inch. There's other ways to do it. Now then, the tip of the hook should be in the lower 1/3 of the scarf. So the tip of the hook should be right there. And I'm going to, you can slide this in and out too. See, this hook assembly can move in and out because it's loose on the shaft. So we want it as close as we can get without touching. And then I'm going to tighten that screw. Okay, let's see if you can see that. We're going to get another angle. So the tip of the hook comes around and picks up the thread in that scarf. I'm gonna move the camera one more time. Let's see if you can see it. I don't know. I need someone else running the camera. Okay, so if that is where you want it, then you can turn the hand wheel and tighten these other screws. But I want to tighten them really tight, so I'm going to get a good big screwdriver. Tighten them up. Okay, so we got our 2 cents worth there. Now what we need to do is make sure that that bobbin basket assembly stays in the right spot, and that is indexed with this positioning finger, and it's going to go in here, and it's going to go right in that groove there. And I'm probably going to have to tip up the machine to do it, because if you can hang it off the end of the workbench. That's another way to do it. But I don't think I can show you that while I'm doing it. So let's just tip it up. And we are going to put that in the groove. And you can't see at all what I'm doing. Let's turn my camera out. Okay, so we're going to get that positioning finger in the center of that carrier, and then take my screw and put it back in the hole. Now, ideally, that positioning finger should be, that center bump of that positioning finger should be centered on the needle. Screwdriver's too big. And not all of these moved very easily. Sometimes I've had to take a grinder to that positioning finger to make it so that it would slide easily in that slot. Okay, let's look at our timing again. So, needle is coming down, and you'll also notice that the take-up lever is up the top. Needle is coming down, the take-up lever is dropping, the tip of the hook is passing right into the eye of the needle, right above the eye of the needle in the scarf, and then we'll go on around and wrap the thread around. At this point, the take-up lever continues dropping. Now at the halfway point, it should pull that loop out. So we are timed. And now we will stop it and sew.